Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in to PWTorch Shooting the Breeze WWE Hell in a Cell 2022. I'm PWTorch Assistant Editor Zack Heydorn, and this show is exactly what you think it is. Kicking back and just shooting the breeze on all things the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view last night. A good night at the office for WWE. Without question. I was in the building, so let's stipulate that right out of the gate. I was in the building, and by the end of the night, people in that building were very happy with the show that they got. And we're going to get into the matches here in a minute and star ratings and all that fun jazz. But I think that it was really interesting to watch this crowd. And if you guys haven't checked out Wrestling Night in America yet, do so. I did a live hit with Greg Parks and talked about this in depth. But the fans in attendance, and it's a Chicago crowd, the fans in attendance really seemed totally content being at a WWE show and I guess living through and dealing with all the things that come along with that potentially. But it was interesting to see there was no real rebellious chants. And so that coupled with the fact that it was just a very memorable night. Thank you, Cody. People walked out of that building feeling really, really happy. But this show is going to be remembered for quite some time. I think this was the Cody show. We'll talk more about what he did and his match in a little bit here. But man, what a performance, what an epic performance on a night where it wasn't certain that the promoted and the heavily hyped main event Hell in a Cell match between Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, it wasn't certain whether or not that was going to happen. And then on the back end, you start with that uncertainty, but then on the back end, you get Cody gutting out like a defining performance, a career defining performance with Seth Rollins. I mean, it made the show, and there were other stuff that was well done on it, and everything else delivered in its spot, but expectations were a little low, right? I think for this show, given what the build was, and I was higher on it than most, but still absolutely a B or C level pay-per-view event. But it turned out, it was a good night at the office for WWE. Like I said, all in, and a lot played into that, but mainly it was Cody Rhodes, and this will be remembered as his show. And kind of, I think here less than 24 hours out, his real coming out party in WWE on multiple levels. One, fans are going to be reacting to him in a way that's more passionate and more intense than ever before. And I have to imagine that Vince McMahon backstage, knowing what we know about Vince McMahon, certainly appreciated Cody going out there and doing it the way that he did and gutting it out the way that he did. So, he probably has extra equity there too. So a good night all around. Let's go through the card here. We started off really hot, and I note this start because I've been to a lot of shows in Chicago at the Allstate Arena, and usually they're a pretty raucous bunch at the beginning, chanting and wooing and just other shenanigans. And there was a moment like 10 minutes before the show started where I was looking around kind of being like, man, everybody's just sitting calmly, waiting for the show to start, and not a lot of chants and not a lot of energy. But then that first match started and things changed, and it was the work in the ring by Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, and Asuka that woke everybody up without question. So you had Bianca Belair defending her Raw Women's title against Becky Lynch and Asuka. Just a really good match, lots of energy. And like I said, it got the crowd going. It woke them up. The action between all three women was so crisp. That was the one thing that stood out, and especially watching it live, they weren't missing anything. Their timing was on. They were precise with the spots that they chose, and they went for it top and worked at a fast pace too. So it's not like they slowed everything down in an effort to make the spots work. This was there, and it was creative. I thought a lot of the spots were unique. I thought a lot of the spots were not new to a triple threat, but twisted and flipped on its side. for a triple threat match in WWE. So I thought that was interesting. And then it had a narrative that like put those pieces all together. And you had, Becky Lynch constantly trying to use her opponent's work to her advantage. And after Bianca hit a big move on Asuka, throwing Bianca out of the ring and then trying to cover Asuka on her own, that was kind of the foundation they set. And then when the finish happened, it tied back to that with Bianca Belair doing that to her. And I think it worked. It doesn't work as an escape hatch, right? I don't think that finish doesn't work as like, oh, we don't know how to finish this. We want to protect X, Y, and Z. So let's do this weird kind of thing. It wasn't that. Like, this very much played into what they constructed in the match that they constructed. So it worked. I thought the finish. And then the other thing that stood out is Bianca Belair. I mean, right? I mean, what's everybody's thoughts on Bianca Belair? Let me know in the comments section. She got a big reaction last night. It was a consistent reaction. There wasn't pushback on her. She is a big-time star, and she acted like it. I mean, she really acted like it out there. And, so retaining the title, to me, was the only call to make. I mean, it would have been exciting to see a title change, I guess, and there were some moments where the audience wanted Asuka to take it home. But, seeing Bianca the way that she worked out there and the response to her, the universal response to her, that was positive, across all demographics in the audience. WWE has something there. They know it. And now they're just, they're feeding that act. They're feeding the act to make sure that she stays hot. And that's what this was. So she had to win the title. I have this graded at 4 stars. I thought it was a really good match, 4-star level match to kick off the show. And it was a pretty cool tone setter, I think, for what the rest of the night would be. Second match of the night, we had Bobby Lashley versus Omos and MVP. It's a handicap match. This was not great from an in-ring perspective by any means, but it was exactly what it needed to be. So I wouldn't call it a good match, but it wasn't a bad match either. Omos was protected, and he wasn't asked to do too much. Smart call, right? I mean, you have this big, huge athlete in the ring. Don't ask him to do too much. Don't ask him to do more than he can. Lean into what he can do well. And that's what happened in this match. And from an in-person perspective, like, wow, Omos is big, very, very big. And there is a presence there that hasn't really come through on television, I don't think. I don't think it hasn't come through on television, but in this instance, live, I mean, it's noticeable, the presence that he has. And I can see why Vince McMahon would look at him and go, yeah, we gotta do something with this guy. It may not look great and there might be issues and he may be limited, but there's a presence there that I'm assuming he wants to tap into. Lashley was the star of this match by far. I mean, Omos played his role, MVP played his role, and Lashley played his role too. But this was about Bobby Lashley, and Bobby Lashley, kind of overcoming, the odds of 2-on-1. He didn't pin Omos, he pinned MVP, but that's okay. The crowd reacted to him in probably like top 3 babyface reactions: Cody Rhodes, Bianca Belair, Bobby Lashley, like those 3, and pretty much without question. Lashley, after he won this match, the audience just was on fire for him. He was one of the only baby faces to stay in the ring after his match and kind of celebrate with the crowd. I'm not sure if they included this on TV or not, but he went into the audience and snatched somebody's replica WWE Championship belt. I think it was the Universal title, actually, and held it up on the ring apron. And of course, he gave it back. But like, he was out there for a prolonged period of time, hanging out with the fans and celebrating his win with them. And so pretty cool. And if Cody Rhodes, because Cody Rhodes is going to be out for a bit here, probably 4 to 6 months minimum. And that's me not being a doctor. That's me just taking a guess based on how other professional wrestlers came back and a time frame in which they came back from a similar injury. He's going to be gone, and they don't have Roman Reigns. They don't have a world title that they can just slap on somebody and make them. So what do you have? Well, you have Bobby Lashley. If that crowd response last night told me anything, it was, hey, maybe you were going to lead the summer with Cody Rhodes. Well, you're not doing that anymore. You have to have somebody else. And Bobby Lashley is right there. And he's getting a reaction from one of the toughest markets in the country to work in front of and be accepted. And Lashley was. So if I'm WWE, I'm working that tonight on Raw, tonight being Monday night, and seeing all that you can get out of it. So the match was exactly what it needed to be. It didn't need to be a 4-star classic, and it wasn't. 2 stars. I got this thing at 2 stars. Effective for all involved, and effective for the show at this point, kind of as a come down match from the opener. Match number 3 was Kevin Owens versus Ezekiel. If you guys have followed my work for PWTorch.com and you read my Raw receipt counts on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, this is not an angle for me. I can't fathom how it is that Kevin Owens goes from main event segment of WrestleMania 38 with Steve Austin to this nonsense Ezekiel storyline. So I was not a fan of this. I haven't been a fan of the Ezekiel angle from the beginning, and not a fan of the match either. So the psychology was off, for one thing. You had Kevin Owens as this heel that the babyface was kind of razzing, and in the match itself, though, the audience, or much of the audience anyway, was cheering Kevin Owens. And so, not ideal if you're Ezekiel, but why wouldn't they? You know what I mean? Like, Owens was far more entertaining in that match. He was the ringleader most of the time, and he was the focus most of the time. He drove its excitement. He drove the drama right out of the gate. The whole feud and really the Ezekiel character is propped up on the shoulders of Kevin Owens. Without him going all in, there's no way this thing reaches a level where you could maybe even put it on pay-per-view or PLE, regardless of how I feel about it. And now you saw that the problem with it on display, because Owens is so good that, and Ezekiel is weak, where he just overshadowed him and overwhelmed him in the match. Ezekiel had his moments, but again, each of them just overwhelmed with like the tidal wave of charisma that Owens brings to the table. So this is one of the lowest graded matches that I have of the show. 1.75 stars. Just not great. Moving on from there, real interesting match. The Judgment Day versus AJ Styles, Finn Balor, and Liv Morgan. This thing was action-packed. It was like the weekend of 6-man tag team matches for WWE. They had a great one on NXT In Your House on Saturday night between Legado del Fantasma and Tony D'Angelo's family. That match, if you haven't watched it and you haven't been watching the NXT 2.0 product, there's not a ton of stuff that I would confidently point you in the direction in, but watch that 6-man tag. I mean, it was really well done. Fast. Lots of action, real fast and real crisp. And I thought this match at Hell in a Cell was the same way. Action-packed. It was quietly a well-built match. Not a lot of intrigue in the build. And I don't think that there's an audience clamoring for, oh my gosh, we have to see AJ Styles, Finn Balor, and Liv Morgan win this match. But it was well built, and I think people were invested enough where they helped emphasize what was happening in the ring, and they reacted the way that the wrestlers wanted them to. They were pretty clearly defined. Babyface team, heel team. There you have it. Go react, and the audience did. Liv Morgan, my goodness, probably one of if not the best in-ring performance of her career was in this match. I mean, yes, I know she's wrestled Becky Lynch, but man, she was tremendous in this match. Her selling was on point. It was believable. Her offense looked crisp as ever before. She timed out well and just ended up looking like $1 million in there. Props to Rhea Ripley and everybody else in the match for helping her along. But man, she delivered in a way that she hasn't yet. On the flip side, Edge, disappointment. I mean, my gosh, he blended in. He didn't have anywhere close to the star aura that he had. I don't know, 6 months ago, right? I mean, like, he was just part of this mid-card stable. I don't think he was, he wasn't bad in the match, but he didn't stand out. It wasn't particularly, intriguing what he was doing in there, and he very much faded in rather than stand out. And so I don't know. I think that tells you that this heel act may not be the best idea, even though it is, helping elevate two new to the main roster stars, new-ish. And it probably makes sense from that perspective. But man, Edge very much neutralized from what I can tell based on this match. Still a really good match, though. Very good match. 3 3/4 stars. Madcap Moss versus Happy Corbin was up next. Good, not great. Maybe not good, but fine. Right? Corbin did a nice job getting heat and not getting the tables. Wink, wink, Seth Rollins. My goodness, we'll get into that in a bit here. Oh, God, it just makes my blood boil. Makes my blood boil, folks. Anyway, and Moss was there when he needed to be to kind of gobble up the babyface shine because of that heat that Corbin set on fire. Like, it worked. Corbin got the heat. Moss turned it into kind of this babyface shine, and they went from there. The thing is, Madcap Moss still just is not over yet with the audience fully. Not even close. He's very much a work in progress. The new look is great. The new look legitimizes him, but he's still working to build that relationship with the audience. He's still, working to kind of get fans to jump on board with him and what he's doing. And I think that process has a ceiling with Happy Corbin, Baron Corbin being involved. Like, because I think people are only going to get so invested in Baron Corbin stuff, right? I didn't even know what that is. That's gatekeeper level stuff, maybe. Otherwise, it's mid to low card fodder. And WWE has to show that Moss can deliver elsewhere outside of that environment if he's gonna launch himself up the card. And he's not there yet. Like I said, it wasn't a bad performance, probably on the higher end of what I figured they would do. But I'm giving it a star in 3/4. Good, fine, but not great. Moss going over was the only choice to make, much like the opening match where you're going with Bianca Belair. I mean, look, you're going with Moss here. You're going with Madcap. You're going with the babyface vanquishing the dastardly heel. Like, this one wrote itself as far as the finish goes. Then we get into some hometown stuff. Oh, WWE they love their hometown guys, don't they? Like, it's funny. The only person that got treated decently in their hometown for WWE was CM Punk. Like, you got a lot of big moments there, a lot of big wins, a lot of big returns. And, he did some jobs as well. But, habitually, that's not how WWE operates. But with him, didn't work out so bad. Mustafa Ali was in the same boat. People reacted big for him right out of the gate. Chicago's own. Theory got a lot of heat. Like, a good starting point for the match. From there, Theory and Ali they had some really good chemistry together. Theory really was able to lean into being the heel that's beating up this local babyface in a big way. He leaned into it. He was aggressive with the way the way he walked around the ring. Super aggressive with kind of pinpoint focus on what he was working on and what the psychology was and how he was going to go about maintaining that heat. He had it. It clicked. On Ali's side of things, I thought he played the sympathetic babyface well. Everything built up to the spot where he's going to go for a 450 splash off the top rope, and he misses. But at that moment, Theory and Ali got what they wanted. Like, that was the moment where you could maybe tell yourself, "Hey, Ali is going to win this thing. Oh my God, he's going to win!" And in the building, people felt that way. Everybody, when he's climbing up to the top rope, everyone's getting up to their feet to watch the big moment, and there's an anticipation that's building there. It didn't work out. No surprise there, though. It's not Ali's time, and it may never be. I don't know. He's a supremely talented in-ring worker. And he has a good character and can talk. So I'm not sure what exactly Vince McMahon sees against him, but it's still, he's still just not in a place where he's going to be in a position like the one even Theory occupies right now. And it's clear Theory is part of their long-term plan. I don't think him talking about John Cena and John Cena talking about him and the commentary team talking about both is an accident. I just don't see that as an accident. They're building to something. Maybe it's SummerSlam. Maybe it's sooner. I don't know. But they're building something up, and Theory is at the center of it. We'll see what happens with Ali. The good thing is, from a booking perspective, Ali was not ever positioned in front of the audience as, hey, get behind me because I'm going to win this match and you're going to want to be on the bandwagon. Like that never really happened. I mean, Ali was involved in a lot of backstage vignettes. He was beaten multiple times, beaten up and beaten in matches. So the proof just wasn't in the pudding as far as him getting the title. As much as the audience may have wanted that, it played well psychologically, but instead of the babyface cashing in on it, it was the heel in Theory. So a 3-star match there. Really liked what they did. Last but not least, let's talk about it in detail. Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, Hell in a Cell. I said it at the top, but this was an epic match. It's going to go down in history as such, without question. Cody Rhodes was a beast in there for that match. I mean, just the fact that he was able to pull off anything, let alone some of the big spots that he had, and the sheer length of the match, 24 minutes. I mean, if he would have given everybody 10 minutes, I think that everybody would have left happy. But man, he went the extra mile and really put himself in a lot of pain. And I've seen and heard some discourse about, hey, how could WWE let Cody Rhodes wrestle in this condition? And my answer to that is twofold. The first being, WWE doesn't have a good track record about this historically. So they deserve to be questioned about these types of decisions because they don't have a good proof of concept in terms of how they handle these things when a big match or big money is on the line. They have not established that baseline at all. So I get why you could be like, hey, I don't trust WWE to make sure that he's seen proper doctors, but I think he did. Look, this is not WWE 1995. 1996, right? This is 2022 WWE. They're a corporate entity, a corporate business. They've got to abide by, certain standards to maintain, that the corporate influence that they have. And, so I don't think they would have trotted Cody out there if doctors hadn't cleared him. I don't see this as doctors were not going to clear him and then Vince McMahon or Cody or somebody else pushed to get it cleared. I just don't get that sense. I think WWE has too much at stake in terms of major business deals to have something go wrong and to have a scandal surround the company. They don't want that. So, it behooves them to get Cody checked out, make sure he can't hurt his pectoral muscle any more than has already had. And then at that point, it doesn't become a risk as far as like, hey, you could injure yourself, A, or injure yourself more, B, or injure something else as you try to overcompensate for the injury. Like it's more than that. It's more than that. The match itself, the tactical stuff was what it was, good, not great, but it didn't matter. Like it really didn't matter. The story played out, and that story that played out was, oh my goodness, is Cody actually wrestling with this pectoral injury, with a purple chest? That thing looked just grotesque and set a tone for the match right out of the gate. I said on Wrestling Night in America last night that it wasn't like a gasp per se, but it was a hum of everybody turning to each other in their seats and going, oh my gosh, do you see Cody's chest right now? it is insane. And I think that layered in a really, really good foundation that they then built on. This thing was more about drama than it was about just 5-star wrestling on the mat. More than anything, drama. Rhodes won't be able to capitalize on this, right away. But he will soon enough. And I think for everyone who thinks this match is going to kind of go down in history as this legendary bout and this legendary performance, I think you're right. But that brings me to the booking. Cody Rhodes had to go over in this match in order for him to be perceived that way. Yes, he could have gotten over in losing, but the true badass in that scenario wins. And WWE doesn't go down that path all the time. They'll veer from it. And I could totally have seen them going with Seth Rollins here, saying to themselves, "Hey, look, Cody's not going to be around, so we need Seth to be strong." And they made the right call here. His performance is even more legendary. He's in a position to be in a top spot for a top match and a top title when he returns from his surgery. So all of that together made sense. And it doesn't make sense in the same way if Cody loses. So a gutsy performance, but the legendary nature of it only comes if you give him the win. And so I'm good on WWE, good on WWE for staying the course on that. 3-0 against Seth Rollins. And now, he's going to take some time off, but when he gets back, he'll be in the mix for top matches moving forward. 4.5 stars. I'm giving that one. Really, just like I said, an epic match, an epic performance. 4.5 stars is a really, really good grade. What did you guys think about Hell in a Cell? Let me know down in the comments section. What's your favorite match of the night? What's your favorite spot of the night? Should Cody have wrestled in his state or should he not have? All those questions and more will be in the chat a little bit later to kind of answer some things and go through them. But there you have it. Fun time, as always, shooting the breeze. This time, all things WWE Hell in a Cell 2022 on PWTorch Assistant Editor Zack Heydorn. Check out Robert's new retake video. Robert's retake number 3 is up on the site now. These are a blast, folks. If you haven't seen them, go watch them. It's Robert Vallejos. You've heard him on the PWTorch Wade Keller Pro Wrestling post shows. You've also heard him on the PWTorch Daily Cast. MMA Talk for Pro Wrestling Fans is this show that usually drops on Mondays. Get more of him here because he's really creative. The video production is amazing. And it's just a fun little segment talking about, the discord of the current events rather than, the current events themselves. So definitely make sure to check that out. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks everybody for listening. I'm Zack Heydorn. We'll catch you guys next time.